Right. Thank you everyone for coming online and joining us for the last session of Tendering to Win. And we have Tara Whitney here, and the Webot Business Network is really thankful to Tara for giving us her time to run these webinars for us and enriching us with information about tendering. So over to you, Tara.
Thank you. Hi everybody, how are you going? I will share my screen again so you guys can see the PowerPoint. As always, please don't hesitate to ask questions. Chuck it in the chat. If you're all muted, you can chuck it in the chat so that you actually, Caroline will have a look and then make sure I answer the question. Otherwise, at the end, I will make sure that we have time for that. Now, let me just get up. Right. Can everyone see the slideshow now? Perfect. All right. So again, Tara Whitney from Whitney Consulting. We write grants in all of us by now. We're in Pingelly and Perth at the moment, but we will expand across regions hopefully at some point. The content today is writing to win. So we've talked about the background of the the tenders. We've gone through the whole tender and all the different components and how it all works. Now we're just going to talk a little bit about when you're actually sitting down and you're writing and what to think about when you're writing. So the first thing I want to talk about is obviously these qualitative criteria. We talked about compliance criteria last week, and we talked about you know, the fact that they're basically a yes or no, and you can say no. But what we need to talk about is the qualitative criteria. So we don't want motherhood statements when you're answering qualitative criteria. We need star responses. So motherhood statements are things like, we are the best building firm in the state, or quality assurance is very important to us at Whitney Consulting. This adds no value whatsoever. You have not given the assessors any information, and it's just taken up potentially word limits if there are word limits applied. So an assessor just passes straight over these statements. They give you no value whatsoever. They essentially just say what everybody is going to say. Every single organisation is going to say they're the best building company. Every single organisation, in response to a question about quality assurance, for example, is going to say that quality assurance is really important to us and we really do it well. But you've got no information, no specifics in that response. So you've got to make sure all of your responses are star responses. So that means you've got to set out the situation. What is the situation? What tasks and actions have you taken? And what has been the result? So what that means is, if we're talking about the quality assurance, for example. So let's talk about quality assurance. Oh, Whitney Consulting, we're great at quality assurance. What are the specific examples of a situation when you have undertaken quality assurance, or a specific example of how it's done in your company? So for example, I might say that at Whitney Consulting, we have a number of staff members, but that quality assurance is completed by myself, by Tara Whitney. I complete all the quality assurance. This is done by, we have a writing guide. So we have a writing guide, which stipulates for all of our writers exactly how they are supposed to write their grants. We also have a quality assurance process, which means that no draft grant application is provided to the client until it has been quality assured by Tara Whitney. So these are out, that's a document we've got. We've got a writing guide document that I can point to. We've got a process I can point to about how our quality assurance is done. I can then talk about an example and say, for example, in the recent regional economic development grants round, we had so many people needing grants written that I had to engage a subcontractor to work on one of the grants. This person had not done any writing for us previously. However, I had a video prepared on how to write a quality red grant application. I have my writing guide, which I provided to this subcontractor. So she had the basics of how I needed her to write it. That application was then provided to us, to Tara Whitney, who did a full quality assurance before the draft was provided to the client. The end result was this application was successful in receiving funds. So you can clearly understand how the quality assurance process works to make sure that the quality of the job is going to be there every time. You've got the policies, the documents, you've got the processes, you've got the result. Did you want to say
Tara,
something?
just a quick, just a quick one. If you were a tradie, a plumber, an electrician, that industry, or hands-on delivering a product, what kind of quality assurance systems could they take on?
Okay, so what they could talk about is they could give an example of how they select and train their staff. So if you're a plumber, for example, you need to make sure that your plumbing are so certifications or to undertake certain training. What's the training process for all of your plumbers? And then what's the process for that actual job? So for the specific job, what is the process? Do you have, for example, at the beginning of the project, they need to complete some sort of a document which sets out exactly what will be done, how it will be done, and what equipment they will use. And then at the beginning of the day, perhaps there might be like a project toolbox meeting, or every day they might have to fill out some sort of a worksheet which ticks off to say, a checklist to say, I've done this, I have, a lot of things might be like, it might even be on an iPad that you might have something set up, or it might just be on a piece of paper where you tick off checklists. I have greeted the client with the appropriate language. I have done this particular piece of work. I don't obviously know how to do plumbing, but I have, all of my equipment is cleaned and ready for use. Then this particular thing that I have done, and set out the processes that you actually have to do to complete the work. And it's a checklist, for example. So that could be something that you might have. That's one way. And then the quality assurance. So do you have checkpoints or hold points? So are there points where the client comes and checks on the work, or where the supervisor, so if you've got a whole team of plumbers doing all their thing, at what point does the supervisor perhaps come and check the work and quality assure it? Are there hold points throughout the project? So if it's a big project, you probably have some sort of hold points where you check and sign off and certify that that work has been done correctly. So all of that needs to be talked about, and you need to give an example of how that has been done in the past. And you also need to explain how that will be done in this instance, in this particular project or contract that you're applying for. So, so as I said, all respondents are going to say that they can do this job. They're all going to say that they can do the contract, and they're all going to say that they can do it the best. What the assessor needs from you is for you to demonstrate that, for you to provide the evidence that you are going to do the job well and you are going to do it the best. And the way to do that is by giving them specific examples of what you have done previously, and also by explaining clearly how you will manage this particular contract. So whether that's quality assurance, whether it's the methodology, anything like that, you've got to look at each of your qualitative criteria and make sure that you have included a star response, that you have given previous examples and talked about clearly how you're going to manage the project. So for example, there may be a question which is all about your past experience, and obviously that's really clear how you can use the star response to talk about past examples. But for the methodology question, for example, that might not be as clear. The qualitative criteria that deals with methodology, what that is asking for you to do is to clearly explain how you will manage this project. And you do that again in a star situation. So you talk about what is the situation. This is the contract. This is the situation. This is what we will do and how we will do it. That's the task and the action. This is what we will do. This is how we will do it. and this will be the result. Then give an example, if you can. In any case, give an example. So we're going to use this methodology. This is how we're going to do it. It's going to result in a fabulously clean toilet. We know this because we did it recently. We know this because recently we did this exact methodology on this project, and this was the result there. Okay. So, for example, if you're asked how risk is managed in your organisation, which is another thing that you might be asked about, you need to talk about the specific policies you have in place, any procedures you have in place, explain exactly what is done in your organisation to manage risk and what the result is. So what that means is, give an example of when you've done it recently, a similar project. So we have risk management policies in place, which ensure that all prior to the commencement of any project, these documents must be completed. And these are the specific templates and documents, and you can usually attach those, but you at least need to refer to them. So these are documents that our policy says have a standing agenda. Oh, yeah.
Tara, can you just go back just 2 sentences, because we just had a little bit of cut out there.
Cut out, okay, no worries.
Yeah, go again.
No worries. So I was just saying about the risk, if we're talking about managing risk. So we have the policies in place. So the policy is that the project manager must complete this specific template or these 2 templates and documents. You can attach those documents potentially depending on what they ask for, or you can just refer to them and explain what they are. But the project manager must complete these templates at the beginning of the project. And then the policy is also that risk must be a standing agenda item on each weekly project status update meeting. So risk, it needs to be addressed at every meeting where we talk about all the risks in the project and we look at the mitigations and we consider whether or not there's anything else we can do. We also have a policy in place which every staff member needs to sign up to, which states that if they identify a risk at any point throughout the contract, they are to immediately provide a written, fill out this particular form and send it to the project manager, which identifies the risk and also suggests mitigation that could be added. Those sorts of things. So this is very clearly showing the assessor, this is how we will manage risk in this contract. We have the policies, we have the templates and the procedures in place, and this is what we will do. So that's pretty much it in writing the responses to the qualitative criteria. So when you are writing your qualitative criteria, do not write a paragraph. If you write 1 paragraph in response to a qualitative criteria, you're very unlikely to get that tender unless you've attached a whole bunch of documents. But even still, if you've attached a whole bunch of documents, but you haven't explained what they are and how they relate to your response to that question, the assessor is not going to understand. If you attach a whole bunch of risk templates, for example, but you don't in your answer explain, this is what we do. So at the beginning of every project, we fill out this particular template. At this whole point, we fill out this particular template. At every project meeting, this is what we do. If you don't explain all of that, attaching the documents is going to do nothing. So your responses need to be detailed. They need to really address that question. These are the questions that are scored. This is where you've got to put a lot of effort into. So you've got to score each of these questions well. So make sure these responses are going into detail about each of the aspects. So answer the question, obviously, and answer it in a star response manner. Give evidence and demonstrate your ability and how things are done and how you will do it in this contract. Does anyone have any questions about writing responses to qualitative criteria at this point? Holly does. Cara, can you unmute Holly? Yep.
Hi there. With actually writing the qualitative responses, then could you, if you're addressing each specific item, would you have a bullet point process that's actually so almost like a recipe to address each item? Is that also an acceptable method?
Yeah, look, the assessor doesn't really care, unless they've stated in the guidelines, the assessor doesn't really care in what method you get the information across.
Okay.
The issue is you've just got to make it very clear. Don't forget that assessors can have 10, 20 tenders to read. So if you assume knowledge just about your organisation in general, but if you also assume that they remember, oh, well, in criteria 1, I answered that, and it's now criteria 4, you're assuming that they remember that. Don't assume that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Actually refer back. So if you think, oh, look, and templates, they can get it wrong. They might have repeated something so that it's just going to be a copy and paste response. So say, as per response to question 1, or please see response to question 1, or just copy and paste it. And at the beginning say, as we stated in question 1, copy and paste. So make sure you don't assume that they remember, because they've got a lot going on. They've read 10,000 different things. If you've attached something, you must refer to it in your qualitative criteria. There is no point attaching a document and not referring to it, because why would an assessor look at it? They're just going to go, oh, they haven't told me anything about that. So if you attach a whole OSH plan, for example, and your qualitative criteria doesn't refer to what that OSH plan is all about, it means nothing to an assessor, because you haven't explained, you haven't said, we have an OSH plan, this is how we use it, and we will use it in this contract in this way. So if you don't explain that, then they're just looking at an OSH plan going, oh, that's great, you've got an OSH plan. What does that mean for this contract? So make sure everything that you attach is referred to in your qualitative criteria. The way I like to write responses to qualitative criteria is to copy and paste the question up the front, at the beginning, so that it is very clear to the assessor what you're answering, but it's also very clear to you what you're answering. You can refer back to it and make sure, did I answer because often the questions will have like A, B, C, D as part of it, or aspects to it. So you can go back and go, have I answered every single thing as well as I can? And you've got to go into detail. So you can't just go, okay, well, look, I've answered the overarching question, but it also has, in this question, you should answer A, B, C, D, and it's got all these different things. I didn't actually cover any of that, but I've answered the question. No, you answer each of them, answer everything that they have asked about, and answer it really clearly. Now that can be, I use headings, I use fonts to do this. I'll use a bold or an underlined heading to make it really clear to the assessor, this next bit that I'm talking about, this addresses this part of the question. And use their wording back to them. So if they have said to you, how do you manage risk in your organisation? In our organisation, we manage risk by blah, 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 blah. Don't mess with it. Simple, keep it simple. Repeat their words back to them. In our organisation, we manage risk by. How do you ensure quality? Our organisation ensures quality by, this is how we do it. We have this policy, we have this procedure, we do this, this is what we do. In the past, in this example of work we have done, we did it this way, and this was the result, and that's why we still do it this way, and we will do it this way for that contract. So if that makes sense. So make it as clear and simple as possible. Just answer the question really clearly, use your star responses, and make sure that you reference any attachments that you have attached, and make it just so clear to them that anybody, don't forget that your assessor may not necessarily be skilled in the area that you are working in. So they may not have, you know, this plumber example, it may be a local government tender for a plumber, for plumbing services. Your assessor could be your, you know, it could be a panel of a few people, or it could be the director of community services. It could be anybody in that shire who has no idea about plumbing. So your tender must make it very clear, without using all this jargon. Use the words you need to, but explain them. If you use something that may be not understood by a layperson, explain it. So if you are saying we're going to use such and such equipment, don't assume, as I've said before, don't assume that people know that that's world-class equipment, that's the top of the range. Say so. We're going to use such and such equipment, which is widely recognised as the best equipment for plumbing in Australia. We're going to use this methodology because, as is recognised by such and such plumbing, Australian Plumbing Association, this is the methodology that is preferred in these situations.
Taz, just lost you. Just start again.
Sorry.
Don't assume.
Okay. Again. Don't. So I was just saying, don't assume that the assessor knows the topic and knows what you're doing. So, for example, an unstable connection. How are we going? Is it me or is it you, Caroline? I'm hoping it's not me. You good? I'm
no,
good now?
you're okay. It just comes in and out occasionally, but I'll pick you up on it. So it's like you keep going.
All right, cool. So, so what I was saying was, on many occasions, we are contracted to assess things, and you can quite clearly tell from what I'm saying, I have no idea about plumbing, not a clue, but I can assess a tender for a plumbing contract, because it should be very clear to me exactly what you're doing and how you're going to do it. Because you don't assume the knowledge. You don't assume that everybody understands that this is the whiz-bang way of doing it. All right, so we may have some more questions to come back to, but that's fine. Just let me know. So what happens when you need help? What happens when you are writing your responses to your qualitative criteria and there's a criterion that is not clear or it's confusing, you don't know what to do? It's exactly like in high school. Others are probably thinking the same thing. Don't assume that you're not good enough because you don't understand. Often I see these tender requests for tender and I think, who on earth wrote this? It is probably not you. Okay, so others will be thinking the same thing. There are provisions for asking questions in every tender portal or document. There'll be a contact person, or it will explain to you. So it should do in the beginning of the, as we talked about in the housekeeping section, there should be a contact person and it should explain how you can ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You cannot score highly on a criteria if you don't understand the question, because you can't answer the question. I suggest you write the question, ask the question in writing, because that will help the client, that will help the assessor. The way tenders work, it's got to be an open and transparent process. So if I ask a question and they give me an answer, they have to give that same answer to everybody that's considering applying. They have to make that answer accessible to everybody. So if you ask the question in writing, they can provide the answer in writing, and it makes it very easy for them. You're not putting them on the spot by giving them a phone call and verbally asking them a question and having them think, oh my gosh, I can't say anything because I've got to make sure then that I say the exact same thing to everybody else. So ask the question in writing if possible. Be careful when you do ask questions not to ask a question that you don't want the response to be shared, because as I said, they will share it with everybody. So all questions and answers will be shared. So if you're going to ask something like, so say you've got a great idea where you think, oh, look, this contract would be best done. You've said you want to use such and such equipment, but it would be so much better and cheaper and more wonderful if you use this equipment. Don't ask that question. Don't say to them, hey, I was thinking that we should use this equipment. Is it possible to use that equipment instead of the equipment that you've said? Don't ask that question, because then everybody knows now that that's what you're going to do, and they start thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll do that. Instead, say that you propose to use this equipment instead for these reasons. This is why. It will make the price this. It will, it will have all of these benefits to doing it. However, if this is unacceptable, you are able to use the equipment that they have said. You don't recommend it for these reasons, and it would increase the cost of your bid by X dollars if you had to use that equipment. So definitely ask questions if you don't understand something, or if you're not sure if you're allowed to do something, but be careful not to, not to tip your hand, because the questions and answers will be shared with everybody. All right. You can ask for an extension in time. If they get enough requests for extension in time, they'll probably don't rely on it, because it may not. But you can ask for it if you feel that it's just a ridiculous time frame that they've asked for. You cannot possibly get in by the due date. You can ask a request for an extension, and if they get enough people ask, they might extend it. Wouldn't rely on it though, because it may not happen. Okay, sorry, the internet was unstable again. All right, think about why the question is being asked, and the question about meaning the qualitative criteria, and that might help you to clarify what's being asked. If you're unsure of what the question means, think about why they might be asking that qualitative criteria. What is it that the client or the assessor is trying to get and trying to understand from asking this question? Remembering that the client is looking for somebody to demonstrate that they are capable and able, and they're going to do a good job. So why might this question be being asked? If I can't really understand the qualitative criteria, think about why they're asking it, and that might help you to understand what the question is. But if you need clarification, don't be afraid to ask for it. Look back to what we've already discussed in terms of what assessors are looking for and how to answer the questions. So if you are on a criteria and you're a little bit stuck and you need some help, you've got access to these videos. Go back and watch them again. You've got, as I said, we've got plenty of blogs, etc. on my website. If you want to have a read of something like that, if it's unsure, that might help you. But go back and watch these videos, and that will talk about what the assessors are looking for, how to answer questions, the purpose of each of the questions. It'll talk about the STAR responses, and that might help you to answer the question. Is the question related to methodology? Is it related to organisational capacity, or is it price? That might help you to understand what it is they're asking, because that gives you an indication of why they might be asking that question. So the next thing when you're writing applications is feedback. Always seek feedback, even if you're successful. You can't be successful in every tender. Don't forget, only one, usually, unless it's a panel contract, only one organisation wins this tender. So you have to be the absolute best. So you can't possibly win every single tender. So you must seek feedback. If you don't know why you didn't get the tender, you can't do better next time. I like to seek feedback even if you are successful, because there will be so much you can still learn even though you were successful, because they might still say to you, look, you scored 10 out of 10 in these 3 criteria. In this one, you only scored 7 though, because you didn't address this particular aspect. And then next time, you know, right, next time I can beef that up. I can aim for 10 out of 10 for every single criteria. Because next time the assessor might be a harder scorer, or you might be up against somebody that is a much more well-oiled machine, and they're getting 9 out of 10 for every single thing. So you need to get 10 out of 10. always ask for feedback, no matter if you're successful or unsuccessful. So I've put up some example questions here, which will help you to tease out information from the assessor. Now, what they will give you depends on the quality of the assessor and their rules. So in some situations, they may say, we don't give feedback. That's harsh. So I would hope that not many local governments would do that. That is often a federal government thing. I would hope that local governments and state government would give you feedback. They may, however, just give you a really standard template, you know, an email which doesn't go into it in any detail. But they often then will say, if you need more, please contact a certain person. So contact them. The example questions are, were there any areas where we did not score as well on, or were there any negative comments about our bid from the assessors? Is there anything negative that we could improve on next time? And if you make sure you're saying it to the assessor, not as a critique, you are not trying to catch them out. Don't be defensive. Don't be like, well, we didn't get it, so I need to know exactly where we didn't get it, and I need to compare with the person that did get it because I think we should have got it. If you're being attacking, then the assessor will be defensive, and they might not want to help you out as much. So make sure you're asking these questions in a way, and you make it clear to the assessor, look, we know that we are really do. We really want to improve on it. Please help give me any guidance in that. Were there any specific positive comments or any areas that the assessors really liked? How competitive were we in pricing? Now, they probably can't tell you were number 1, 2, 3, or 4 unless they accidentally put it on the website. So they can't tell you whether, you know, where you sat, but they can say that you were high, or you were, you know, around about the average, or you were one of the cheapest. They can probably tell you that information. And that helps you obviously for next time, because you understand, okay, look, I'm nailing my pricing. I was right about in the middle. I wasn't really cheap. I wasn't really expensive. That's great, because pricing is a hard thing to decide. How could we improve? Just ask them, how could we improve? What was our best and our worst scoring criterion? Look at the worst one and go, right, how can we improve that? Look at the best one and go, what is it that we did here that was so good? So yeah, essentially the more you know, the better you can do next time. And as I said, with the pricing, it is really, really helpful to know if you are nailing that pricing, because it is a real trial and error thing often with pricing to make sure that you are competitive, but not too expensive. So in summary, when we are writing our qualitative criteria, make sure you don't rely on motherhood statements. Make sure you evidence and demonstrate. So use star answers, use past examples, be clear about how you will deliver this contract. And that's the nitty gritty. So people sort of think, oh, you know, we'll manage risk. The nitty gritty specifics, exactly how, walk them through the process, exactly how will you do it? And exactly what will you do? Assessors need this evidence. They need proof, because they can't possibly know. You haven't done the work yet. So they are relying on your past experience. They are relying on your methodology. They're relying on you saying, this is the processes, procedures, everything we have in place, and this is how we propose to do it, and this is what we've done in the past, to make them feel that you are going to deliver the job that they want. They're taking a gamble that you guys are going to deliver the work and be quality. So to help them in that gamble, give them as much information as you can to prove that you can do this job and you can do it well. As I said before, think carefully before you ask a question, because they do get shared with everyone, but always ask a question if you need to. Always obtain feedback regardless of the outcome. And don't forget, there are people around to help you. So the WBN can help you in many cases if it's something. I'm obviously here, get in touch. But as members of the Wheatbelt Business Network, they are here to help you as well. So if you are struggling with a tender, or if, for example, you, as we talked about previously, you might look at it and go, oh, look, I can see that my organisation absolutely nails all of this, but we're a bit weak in this one particular area. we should partner with someone. So we talked about that before, partnering with another organisation. If that's what you identify, if you want to go for this tender, but you think, oh, I could just need to partner with someone in this particular area, contact the WBN. They've got so many members and they can say to you, oh, in that specific area, could contact these people. You could partner with them and they would really beef up your tender. So don't forget to use your networks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tara.
So is it my internet? Yeah. Is it mine? I have changed my internet recently, so I wonder, that's not great because I've literally just changed it. So I will get an extender or something.
That's okay. All right. Were there any questions from anyone? And if you do want to ask a question, just unmute yourself, please. Okay.
Holly.
Oh.
Hi, sorry. This is more because there's the follow-on, there's a local government tendering and quoting forum that was attached for the link for this meeting. It was a flyer. Are they doing that by Zoom at all, or you have to actually go in face-to-face at that location? It's at Shire of Dandaragan Chambers.
Yeah, they're not doing it by Zoom, but it's probably more aligned to the projects that are happening up that way, Holly. So
Yeah.
are you're on the Avon, aren't you?
No,
Or
we
no?
do whole of Western Australia and Northern Territory, that's all.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I will forward you Megan Cray's contact details because she is the local content officer for the Wheatbelt, and she'll be presenting there, so she can give you a bit of an understanding, and we'll see if we can get some presentation notes from her. Okay. We did try and hold a similar one in Merredin pre-COVID, but unfortunately, yeah, COVID got us, so we didn't do it. But I'll follow up for you with Megan.
Thanks. She's also, I think, got the date wrong on her flyer because the 20th of August is a Thursday. She's got 19th is a Thursday.
Okay.
So
I'll ask her. Yeah.
If it's a Wednesday, I might be able to go. Thursday, I couldn't. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'll do that for you.
Thank you.
And also, like when you're members of us, she does send through tenders, and we do pump them out in our e-news and on our WBN only Facebook page. So keep an eye on that. And the other thing I'd say is the Wheatbelt Development Commission is starting a register on their website for a couple of specific projects, mainly infrastructure projects, where businesses can go and register their interest and have their contact details with the Wheatbelt Development Commission. So I just encourage you to go and have a look at their website. But as I say, it's mainly for infrastructure. And I'm pretty sure some of the other development commissions are doing similar things where they're having a register of businesses online. So just check into your development commission.
Thank you.
Anything else? Pretty good. Well, I'm going to miss our Friday morning catch-ups. But thank you very much, Tara. And thank you everyone for being online. And yeah, we'll make this recording and I'll flick it out to you afterwards, okay?
Thank you, Tara. It's been really good.
That's great. Thanks, Ian.
Cheers, Caroline.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.